Hey, BJ.
Hey, what's up,
Listeners,
Shante?
what's going on? Another episode, Permission to Live. Thank you all for listening and commenting. Please keep that stuff coming. How was your week? And
Great week. Learning a lot. I was very excited about the feedback we've been getting from the show.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, be interacting with everybody, and we hope that if you have any questions, that we could talk about some of the things. She's the expert. I'm just
I'm
the
just
sounding
here
board.
sharing my thoughts and my love for some of the topics and some of the thoughts of the listeners. And I pay close attention to the comments and try to connect our next episodes based on some of the comments and some of the thoughts and the feedback and the dialogue that I get with some folks that listen. So let's dive right into it.
Come on.
Listen. All right, so I was talking to a colleague and someone who listened to the podcast, and I think it was also on one of the social media sites, particularly with Black Women Empowered, that posted it. It was talking about generational trauma, and do we really, although we know that it's there, I think people within our community talk about generational trauma all the time. They talk about breaking generational curses, right? And so it's not a new thought,
Right.
but how many people actually care about it from the perspective of doing something intentionally to change it?
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of talk about generational trauma, and then also a lot of folks loved your comment on the last show that spoke about everyone is important, but no one should be more important than you.
And I got that from the book, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Yeah.
When I heard that, it just resonated with me. So we definitely get into that. That's very important.
Absolutely. And it's like, do those two thoughts intertwine? Based on what I've been through, based on the traumas that I've been through, based on the traumas that have been culturally passed down to me from generation to generation, does that or has that impacted my ability to know how to put myself first?
Absolutely.
Or, knowing that I am important, right? So if we look at it, this is a definition. This is a definition from Baz Brailford. It's a book, The Practical Approach to Trauma. But their definition, I think this was cited from another author. They cited it from someone else. But intergenerational or multi-generational trauma is defined as the cumulative emotional and psychological woundings that is transmitted from one generation to the next. Woundings, yep. Emotional and psychological woundings that is transmitted from one generation to the next. And again, I believe they cited someone else in this particular academic book. So let's just break that down. If we look at emotional and psychological wounding that is passed down from generation to generation, what are your thoughts of what some of those woundings could be? Because I got some other stuff, but I'm just wondering what you think.
Well, slavery popped up in my mind. And we're passing things down from grandma, granddaddy, down to the generations, and we're acting out behaviors. We don't know where they come from. When I look at my family, there's a lot of secrets and a lot of things came out. Now that I think back on certain situations, like I think my family had sexual abuse in it because of some of the interactions that I've had with family members that I never dealt with.
Yeah.
Situations where I may have been with an aunt, and when I was a child, I remember her coming on to me, but I really didn't believe that was happening. So I just put it in my file cabinet, you know.
Yeah.
When I think back to a lot of even some of my male cousins who acted out behaviors, right? And I never talked about it. I never dealt with it. I just recently talked about what I'm telling you
Wow.
in the last year.
Okay.
And how did that scar me and not really understand? I still have good relationships with family members and all the people, but that had to do something to me as a child.
Man, wow. For one, I commend your bravery.
Thank you.
Because that's not easy to share. You know, as being a survivor myself, I understand the impact. Here is the thing. Are we talking about the generational curse of secrets?
Wow.
Right? Because we look at slavery, right? We take it back then, which was covered up, had nothing to do with us covering it up. But there were so many secrets that people now, they're finding out the real deal about exactly what we have done and what we've contributed. I think that's why there's such a fight to attack things like critical race theory, and because the knowledge is coming out, right? So those are secrets that's being revealed, right? But then we talk about what generational secrets, because we do have a culture of protecting each other, sometimes to our detriment. But there's also a psychological consideration that has to be thought about, and I challenge those to really think about, if you have a child, for example, who is being abused by someone who was supposed to care for them, how conflicting are those thoughts for that child? So you have somebody who takes you out to the movies, feeds you, right? Take care of you, read you books at night. They support you at the school. They potentially even show up at your games. But also that same person who cares for you and takes care of you is sexually abusing you at night.
I think so many of us have been touched by that. And you wonder why people behave strangely, especially a female. And I don't care what you say, your reaction to certain things says that something has happened that you're not talking about. Your what's the word when somebody's like really an introvert when it comes to being around people, not trusting. And man, how confused could you be if somebody's taking care of you, doing all those things, but yet they're sexually abusing you and you don't have anybody to tell that would believe you?
Yeah. Or you don't want to get someone in trouble because, wow, this is taking a turn. But because groomers are good at what they do.
Groomers.
Right? So it's like there's a whole process to this. And the words that are said during certain acts or during whether it's and then there's so many different traumas. You got physical abuse, emotional abuse. I mean, there's a lot of abuse. But you know, I know if you say something, I'm gonna go to jail.
Yeah.
So this is just between us because I know you don't want me to go to jail, right? Or there's those that'll say things like, "Listen, if you say something, I'm gonna kill your mom."
Wow.
Or that, like, you know, this goes so much deeper, and that's why I think that it's important. And this is probably going to be part 1 and 2 because I don't see us getting to
Yeah.
you know, in the time that we have. I also, and you know me and my words and interchanging or changing words. I don't want anyone, any child, any adult, because keep in mind the adverse childhood experience, and this is a study, not a new study. I want you guys that have never heard about the adverse childhood experiences questionnaire or study, look it up. There's quizzes that you can take online, but there are about 10 questions, and the more ACEs, and that's what they call it, more ACEs you have, it tells you kind of the likelihood of how that impacts your physical health as well as your mental health. And if you do take it, you know, connect with support to make sure that you're in a healthy place too. Again, this is just information. You know how deep things are. If you feel like you need to connect with a mental health provider, do that. This is not something for therapy. You know, our podcast is just here for information. But
letting everybody know you are a clinical.
yes, I am a therapist. Absolutely, absolutely. And I've got a lot of trainings, particularly with childhood trauma. But if you take it and you realize that, wow, maybe my depression is correlated to all of these adverse childhood experiences that I've had, because the ACEs that that some and not all, and I'll even probably challenge that a little bit, but it impacts your brain functioning, how you think as a child. That will therefore impact how you are as an adult. You know?
Yeah. Let me bring something up. I remember in the summertime when all my cousins would come together in the summertime at my grandmom's, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of things happen with cousins when the adults are not around. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those are some things that we don't talk about that causes trauma. I just brought that up because I know that in a Black experience with our families, I know you got kissing cousins and you got all that kind of stuff that's going on, you know.
Yeah.
I had a cousin, female cousin, she wanted me real bad.
Wow.
And it didn't affect me negatively, right? But I'm just saying that if you have been in a traumatic situation and you kept that a secret all your life, that messes you up with relationships with other people.
Absolutely. The psychological and the emotional impact that trauma has on individuals is tremendous, especially when you are a child and it hasn't been dealt with. There weren't protective factors that was put in place. Your parents was also dealing with their own traumas, and because of their own traumas that has yet to be worked through and healed, they can't see their children's trauma, or they don't want to see their children's trauma. So I would challenge anyone that feels like their traumatic experiences hasn't impacted them unless you've really processed through it, you know. And those are questions that, again, you want to have a really strong support system or seek mental health counseling on your own to really see how life can be once you heal. Mm-hmm. Is there a complete healing? I don't know. I think healing is a journey. Mm-hmm. So I think people can sometimes think that once I go to therapy one time, I'm good. And it's not, because it's all developmental, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What about people who have never been to therapy? You said that. I've never been to therapy before. Now, I've been in front of a marriage counselor before.
Yeah.
But I've never sat down and let somebody psychoanalyze my thoughts or me pouring out and not judging me.
Yeah, yeah. You know, therapy is something, it's like a doctor too. It's like you got to find the one that best suits you. And I think sometimes people will go and they're like, this ain't helped me, right? Or they start to get challenged and they're like, nah, I'm not trying to do this, because doing the work is hard. Yeah. You know, but if you've never been in therapy and you're like, but I've been pretty good, I would ask, you know, the protective factors that you have within yourself, or factors of resiliency that you have within yourself, to say, I've been able to get through it because of my support system, because of my ability to have healthy coping strategies, right? But I believe in therapy. That's why I am a therapist. I believe in talking things through, not to get necessarily answers, but to understand. Like when you're talking about the cousins and all of that and how that impacts, I mean, the knowledge of what that means, right? Parents being able to see and to correct,
Yeah.
right? To address, so that you're not having children thinking that they have conflicting thoughts,
Yeah.
right? And you don't want conflict within the mind. You don't want conflict within the brain about, man, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or shame and guilt, or anxiety when certain family members come around. That anxiety, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's so much that's associated with that.
I was going to ask you, generational trauma and the death of a significant person in the family.
Yeah. So grief. Everybody handles and deal with grief differently.
Yeah.
And within certain communities, they know to kind of talk about it. There's some that will go to the funeral and then that's it.
That's it.
There's some where you've had complex grief, right? So you have deaths where a person actually saw the death, or you have individuals who died by suicide. There's complexities to grief and death. So,
one of the ways I dealt with the loss of all my family members, my brother, mother, and father, was that I lived in the house after everybody was gone. And then when I moved out, I never wanted to go back in the house. And my cousins live there now. They own the house that we grew up in. And when I go there, I don't go inside that house. I don't go over there.
Yeah. And there could be a lot of reasons, and when it comes down to trauma, you have things that trigger uncomfortable emotions within you that if you haven't had the chance to intentionally figure out why, there's smells that trigger uncomfortable emotions. There's things that you see, there's colors. You could have been sexually assaulted in a bathroom with red walls, and every time you go into a bathroom with red walls, it takes your brain back to an uncomfortable moment, and your body reacts. No one wants to feel that. So sometimes our first response is, let me avoid it, right? So if I avoid it, I don't have to feel it. But guess what? The body always remembers. The brain always remembers.
Yeah.
So you can't run from the uncomfortable.
So what that has done, when you talk about generational trauma, it's cut off family members that I need to deal with, like nephews, nieces, cousins that I don't interact with like that, like I used to. And I know that needs to be fixed, right? Because I'm just robbing. Only time we'll see each other is when the funeral of somebody that passes, and we'll see each other and we'll make a vow that we're going to keep in contact, and then we go back to our business as usual, and until the next person dies, and then we'll see each other again. Years are passing by. We're getting older, and I think that's a waste of life.
Yeah. Connections are important. Healthy connections are important. That's one of the keys to having protective factors, and resiliency is connecting and connection.
I can see on your face you didn't realize my life was this complicated.
No, it's not that. It's my mind is just wow, and I think that it's healthy to share some things when you're ready, and everybody has timing. Everybody has timing, but I tell you what, when you're ready, you're ready. When you're ready to live a life that you feel is freeing for you, right? When you are no longer wanting to be in the background or suffer in pain and suffer in silence. You no longer want to mask your emotions where everybody is seeing you and you smiling, but on the inside you're in pain. You know, that becomes tiring.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody deserves a life of true freedom internally. You know, and when you seek it, it's important. You know, so I'm happy actually.
Yeah.
You know,
I was about to ask you that about, you know, being happy, being truly happy. A lot of us don't know what that feels like, to be totally free-spirited, uninhibited, happy about our current life situation. There's always a cloud somewhere, something we haven't dealt with that we're not experiencing the joy like we had when we were children, when you used to go to the amusement park in the summertime when you was a child. You had true happiness, and that it was a beautiful experience. Came away with a lifetime memory to cherish forever.
Yeah.
But when you get to be an adult, it's like those experiences are far and few between, if ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. Joy, happiness, you know, these are feelings. And everyone wants to feel happy and joyful, glad, you know, content. And I would ask the question if a part of that is being able to not avoid the pain so that it doesn't continuously pop up and interact or interfere, rather, with your happiness. Does that make sense? What I mean by that is if you have unresolved stuff, and you could be in a place where you're content, but there's so much that you have to heal from. When you have those moments when things do pop up, it's so intense that it interferes everything that you got going on in your life. And it's hard sometimes to come back from that, you know? And again, I always want folks to seek support. You know how complex your stuff is, you know, and get some support when you dealing with some of this complex stuff, you know? So, but everybody wants to, and I would ask y'all to do a homework assignment, man. Be like, listen, what do I feel is interfering with my ability to be genuinely satisfied with my life?
Wow, that's a great question.
Right?
Yeah.
To be content with where I am, to accept my pain as a part of my growth.
Wow, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why when we talk about feeling words, we all have those feeling words. There's also an acceptance to say, I can't change what has happened. I could have and embark on this journey of healing, but I can't change it. So there is a way of creating meaning to your experience. That can be a spiritual meaning. For me, everything's a spiritual meaning. Like I see God about all things, because I really truly believe that the most difficult moments and the most painful moments in my life is pushing me to my true purpose and destiny. So I don't avoid it. I'm like, Lord, bring it. But when you bring it, also bring understanding.
Yes.
Right? Also, please allow me to know who I need to connect to. Meet me in the secret place that only you and I share, so that when I have those times where I'm like questioning the why, you can heal the why.
Come on. Deep.
You know? Yeah. So, but ask yourself the question, man.
I love that.
You know, what's your barriers? And then however you process through that. You know, I have folks, listen, if y'all don't get yourself a healthy support system, somebody or folks that you can chime some thoughts off of, and they don't give you theirs, and it make it more complex.
Yeah.
Or they give you foolishness, and you're like, that did not help. That actually made me feel worse.
Yeah, right.
You know, but somebody who there's a mutually shared experience to where you're both giving insight to each other's life and you're feeding into each other and not taking away from each other.
So with that question, if you get a piece of paper and would you suggest you just write out everything that is a barrier to your happiness? And you know what that is, right? But we're refusing to deal with it in the way it needs to be dealt with. Because if there is nobody that you can talk to, like you said, you go in that secret place with your Lord, and you know you're gonna get the answer and it might not be the answer that you like,
right?
Because some of the times when we don't get the answer that we want, we think it's not an answer. So, you know, I think I spend more time with myself, and I stop calling people, and I just depend on him to give me the answer, no matter how long it may take. But when it comes, I know there hasn't been any interference between or me considering what somebody else said.
Yeah.
And it's just that one-on-one, you know. But like I said, different things work for you know. I have
different people. Yeah.
I have I would say probably one person outside of my family structure that I could talk to that would just sit there and listen and just ask me questions and not try to make, you know, sometimes when you talk to people, they make it about, well, this is what happened to me and I did this. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they don't concentrate on you. And that's what you need. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so there's some that have natural supports. There's some that have social supports. I mean, there's some that have supports, but they don't trust their supports. There's therapy, there's counseling, there's places of refuge. You know, there's churches, and you're finding, you know, whatever that thing is for you. But it is important to connect, and that's just my opinion. You know, you know, it's important to connect, especially when we are trying to break generational traumas. Because, for example, and I'll put it in this from this perspective. If me as a parent, if I'm severely depressed, and I have 2 children that is in need of my emotional support, that's in need of my mothering, my nurturing, me being able to care for them. But depression has that feeling of, I don't want to do anything. I don't, right? That lack of motivation. That particular parent is not going to have what is needed in that moment to give that support to the kids. So then what happens to the kids if they don't have strong attachment with the parent?
Yeah.
If they don't feel loved, even though the parent loved them. Because mental health and mental illness is real. And it does not mean that a parent doesn't love their child. It just means that they have to work through that mental health issue or concern, right? So it's important, in order to break or to even explore breaking generational traumas, is getting to the root cause of where the heck did this even start, right? And there's some that are called to dig historically. I'm talking about way back. You're talking about historical trauma, racial traumas. I mean, it can be broken down, right? But let's talk about within your own house. Let's take it to grandma, right? And then where did some of it start? Where's the root? And not that there is a need to go back and challenge and fix some people have been traumatized by individuals who's no longer living, right? So don't seek. Sometimes we want answers, right? Sometimes there is none. And sometimes there is, even if you get an answer, it's not going to make you feel better because the answer does not make sense to you, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking or wanting the idea of seeking answers. It's more of seeking knowledge so that I could dig within myself to become more knowledgeable about me. How did that interfere with my life? What were the disruptions? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So does that lead us to our other part where we're talking about putting yourself first?
Yes. Yeah. Right? I can't learn how to put myself first if I've been taught to always put everybody who's done me wrong first by not saying nothing.
Good God Almighty.
Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
That's what you're doing?
That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're putting pain first.
Wow.
You're putting individuals who hurt you first. Because you ain't saying that. So it's like, I guess the secret is more important than me.
Wow. And you carry that all your life. That's more important than me healing. Man, that's what I'm saying. You know, we walking around here wounded people, like you said earlier, and we're so wounded, and the wound goes so deep, and we've accepted it as our lot in life, but it's not, because we're refusing to challenge what we know needs to be fixed because we don't want anybody to know about it. It's a shame to live because you're going to die and not be really happy and be free of that burden that you're carrying around.
And it's a journey. You know, it's like steps. You know, take the healthiest step for you. Look at this. There's so much to it. The complexities of trauma. You got to be sensitive to it. You have to be. You have to look at it from a lens of healing, not a lens necessarily of anger. You have a right to be angry.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from the lens of anger, that anger could make you a person that you don't want to be.
Right.
It'll interfere with your relationships because you're angry at everything. So you have a right to feel anger, but that anger cannot drive you as a person. Right? Yeah. Is that, you know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen somebody who's angry all the time?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And anger is the easiest feeling to feel, to be honest. But sometimes that's masking pain. That's masking depression. I don't like to feel sad. So I'm going to mask it with anger. But go ahead.
Yeah. Just going back to, our last episode when I took that quote out of The Magic of Thinking Big, and it says, people are important. Other people are important, but they're not more important than you. And you have to make a vow to yourself that I will not allow what happened to me before to ever happen again, because I love and respect myself so much, I won't allow such a thing to take place in my life. Done with that. And once you make a declaration of independence for yourself, put yourself first, and you ain't doing nothing wrong by putting yourself first, by loving yourself, because how can you love other people? Because people lying when they talk about I love everybody, but you don't love you. Why you last all the time? If you really love yourself and you treat other people according to the way you love you. So that's a lie, talking about you love everybody when you don't love yourself enough to put yourself up front. And when you love yourself in the right, not ego love, not self-importance love. I'm talking about true love and looking at yourself of how you would want to treat another human being and then treat yourself like that.
Yeah, Absolutely. But I can tell you this, and we can continue this discussion. Doing some of these things could have effects that you have to accept and heal and deal with that could be uncomfortable, because sometimes loving yourself, people don't like it. So you start to do things and then you find yourself in a place of isolation because nobody want to deal with you.
That's what happens.
Because, and I want everyone to know there's things that, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable with yourself, learn how, and we can talk about this during another episode, but what does loving yourself really mean? Start to sit with yourself, because when people start falling off or people start not agreeing with some of the decisions that you're making because you're putting yourself first, you won't get into a place to where you feel like you need to reach out to unhealthy people because you want that immediate fix of happiness or appeared happiness versus long-term joy.
Yes.
I
love it.
Long-term joy sometimes require isolation.
Yes. And you got to be willing to, it's between you and the God who gave you permission to be on this planet. We don't need approval from nobody but him. So you already are approved.
Yeah.
You already approved to be here. So, I mean, whether you like it or not, you take it up with him because he the one that allowed me to come here. So, we just got to get into, like you're saying, talking to a therapist, because you deserve to be happy, brothers and sisters. You deserve to get out of this funk that you've been living in. You accept mediocrity as your way of life for years, and you got to deal with you.
And don't look at other people and equate your life with theirs and they're happy with yours. Everybody's lens of happiness is different. How they seek that is different.
Yeah.
What they find joy in is joy in is different. So don't try to match up with someone else. Learn you. The things that I don't like to go out. My happy place is at the house most of the time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But if I was to look at maybe some of my counterparts, it's like maybe I'm not. Maybe I need to. No, really, literally spending intentional time with my kids, I would not trade that for the world.
Right,
but some is like, whoo, nope, but
Yeah.
it doesn't make anything right or wrong. But you have to know what that means for you.
Yes.
So don't compare yourself to anybody
That's right.
else. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Sit with you. Seek I think I put a quote like this on my Instagram page too. It's crazy. But it falls along the line of seeking or dealing with short-term discomfort for long-term joy.
Go ahead. That's it.
And I'm not going to take up time to try to find the exact quote, but it's on my Instagram page, Shante.vines. And it was actually a video. And it's like, listen, I'm going to put it in a relationship example. You break up with somebody. It's been about 2-3 weeks. Now, this person ain't good for you.
Yeah.
But you have that one day where it's tough and it's heavy.
Right.
And you're like, let me go ahead and call him. Let me go ahead and call her. And then find yourself 4 years later down the line dealing with the same. Because that short-term, you don't, but that's dealing with you.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with nobody else. When you get into those moments of discomfort, dig within. Why am I uncomfortable? What am I looking for in this person that I cannot seek for myself? And it got nothing to do with the physical.
Man, there's some deep questions you got to ask yourself, right?
Listen.
And that's what we don't pause and evaluate. Okay, why am I going to pick up the phone and call him or call her, right? And then you sit there for a minute. Nah, I ain't going to call. But you don't ever think because you're impulsive because you want that, like you said, that instant gratification. I want to have some kind of interaction with somebody, and they'll do. You know, maybe it may be, you know, you're lonely, and it's a Friday night. I want to eat some popcorn and cuddle up on the couch with somebody, but that's the wrong person.
Yes.
For you to do it with. That's you done curled up with the devil.
The emotional stuff is real. This was good. This is like a to be continued. Listen, half of these notes I wrote, you know, but this is good.
Yeah. Hey, we got to thank our founder of Black Women Empowered, Miss Jackie King.
Absolutely.
For allowing Shante to have this show on Black Women Empowered.
And you, BJ, not just me.
But it's your show. No, you're the professional. I'm just here as a sounding board, but I'm so proud of you and the information that you give. Our women need this information, and I know it's helping people.
Oh, to God be
because the way you express it, and how can people be interacting with you during the week to get information and just be a sounding board for people, you know?
Yeah. The best way to connect with me is through my Instagram. People are probably asking, why don't you have a LinkedIn? Or I'm at a place in my life, and people could agree, disagree. I am not against social media. But in the phase of life that I'm in, I don't want to be found unless God wants me to be found.
Good God Almighty, you teaching.
You know, so intentional connections, you know. But the best place is Instagram. You know, I do motivational speaking and coaching and things like that. Definitely connect with Black Women Empowered. They have a network that they are building, and I will be doing some workshops through them on just balancing women who wear multiple hats, professional women who wear multiple hats. Yeah. How can you do that and still be successful? Yes. So definitely connect, blackwomenempowered.org. But again, they have a network. So find out more information. But yeah, hit me on Instagram, Shante.Vines on IG. If you want me to come out and, you know, talk to a group of women, you got a small group or you got a large group or whatever, I'm there for you. Just hit me up.
Awesome. You can also reach me on social media at BJ Murphy Show, and we'd love to interact with you guys. So another great episode. We're going to be back with you for our next episode. I can't wait for the topic, because you always come up with some great topics, and I'm just really proud to sit here and listen to you. And I hate to tell you this, but I kind of get a free therapy session when I'm here with you.
You know what, BJ? I am here as your support. I am here for you, man. You know, this is good stuff. This is really good. I appreciate you. I appreciate the God purpose connection.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's been good. Talk to y'all.